She staggered to his fence, torn dress clinging, wrists scarred by rope and fire. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please, let them take me." But Elias Boone, a rancher weathered by dust and years, didn't step aside. He lifted her into his home, and in that moment, drew the wrath of a dozen riders who would kill to claim her back. What kind of woman begs to be taken? And what kind of man risks everything to defy her wish? The desert wind carried dust like smoke from a battlefield. Evening light burned copper across the horizon, staining every rock and ridge in blood-red hues. Elias Boone, a rancher with lines carved deep into his face by sun and sorrow, stood at his fence mending wire when the sound reached him. A stumble, a gasp, the thud of a body hitting earth. She was young, maybe mid-20s, skin pale beneath the grime, her dress torn to ribbons. She collapsed against the fence post as if it were the only thing holding her up. Her lips trembled with words he barely caught. "Please, let them take me." Her voice cracked like a dying bird, yet her eyes, gray and wild, held a glint of defiance. Elias froze, leather gloves hanging limp in his hands. He scanned the horizon. Dust clouds swirled far off. Riders, more than a few, coming fast. For a long second, the rancher felt the weight of two choices: leave her there, as she begged, or pull her across the fence into his world, knowing the storm that would follow. His stallion, Ironhide, snorted and pawed the ground, as if sensing trouble. Coyotes yipped somewhere beyond the ridges. Elias bent, slid his arms beneath her frail frame, and hoisted her into the yard. She resisted at first, nails scratching weakly, but her strength was gone. He laid her on the porch, the boards creaking under her weight. Her wrists bore rope burns. Her boots, city-made, not meant for the desert, were worn to leather scraps. "Why'd you say that?" Elias muttered. "Why ask me to let them take you?" Her eyes fluttered shut, but before she slipped under, she rasped, "Because fighting them means your death too." The hoofbeats grew louder, closer, like thunder rolling down from the heavens. Elias straightened, rifle in hand, his shadow stretching long across the porch. Friend or foe? Salvation? Or a crueler fate? He didn't yet. No. But as the first silhouettes broke the ridge, rifles glinting in the fading sun, Elias Boone knew one thing for certain. By lifting her into his house, he had chosen sides. And now, the Wild West would come collecting. The night settled heavy. Stars scattered sharp against a black sky. Elias set a lantern on the kitchen table, its flame jittering as though nervous. The woman lay on a cot he'd dragged from the loft, her breath shallow but steady now. Every so often she murmured in her sleep, words tangled between fear and fever. Outside, silence was not comfort but warning. The riders hadn't stormed the yard. Not yet. Elias had watched their shapes melt into the foothills, waiting like wolves at the edge of firelight. They knew patience. That worried him most. When dawn bled silver over the mesas, Elias saddled Ironhide and rode into town. Dust clung to his boots as he stepped into the saloon, where whispers already stirred. Folks spoke of a bounty, $10,000 on a woman who'd run from men calling themselves land brokers. Yet no one believed men that rich carried papers alone. Behind them, rumor said, was blood. Sheriff Caro tipped his hat but did not smile. "You keep strange company, Boone." She was seen. "They'll be coming for her," Elias bristled. "Then why ain't you doing a damn thing?" "'Cause law don't stretch far enough to touch the men chasing her." Caro's eyes flicked away, shame carved deep. "You stand between them and their prize. You'll find yourself buried before Sunday." Elias left without answering. His boots struck the boardwalk hard like hammers on nails. On the ride back, he scanned the ridges. A flash of metal caught sunlight. Too quick, too sharp to be accident. They were watching, measuring him. Back at the ranch, she was awake, sitting against the wall with a blanket over her shoulders. The brand on her wrist caught his eye, a mark burned deep, cruelly deliberate. "They'll kill you for me," she whispered. "Better you let them take me and live." Elias set his rifle against the door, voice firm as iron nails. Ain't how. I was raised. You came to my fence, that makes you mine to protect. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. She knew what that meant. By keeping her, Elias had not only defied armed men, he'd painted a target on everything he owned, and out on the ridges, unseen eyes narrowed, readying the storm. Out here in the Wild West, every choice carried a price. By taking her in, Elias had made enemies, and they were already closing in. If you've been gripped by this tale so far, don't just ride past it. Subscribe now for more stories of love, survival, and the battles that carved the frontier, because the next turn may change everything. By the third day, the whole valley hummed with tension. Elias could feel it in the cattle, restless in their pens, and in the way the crows circled tighter above the barn. Word had spread. Boone was harboring the woman. Folks in town either kept their distance or watched him with pity, as if already carving his name into stone. That evening, Marshal Dent rode in, dust streaking his coat, badge dull with years of compromise. He tied his bay to the fence and stepped heavy onto the porch. "You've got yourself a storm brewing, Boone," Dent said, his eyes flicking toward the cot where she sat with her hands folded like a prisoner awaiting judgment. "I don't." "Need a sermon?" Elias replied, jaw tight. Dent sighed. "This ain't about you needing one. It's about me offering you a way out. They want her, not you. You hand her over, no questions asked, I'll call it even. Otherwise—" He let the word hang, heavy as a gallows rope. The woman's lips parted. "Let them take me," she whispered. Again her voice hollow. Elias turned, his face a map of stubborn lines. "Not while I'm breathing." Dent leaned close, lowering his tone. "You're making a choice that'll cost you, and when it does, you'll wish you'd listened." He mounted his horse without waiting for an answer, riding back toward town with the slow inevitability of a man who'd already buried too many fools. Elias returned inside, the door creaking like a confession. The woman met his eyes. "Why? Why fight for me when I've brought death to your door?" He poured her a cup of water, his hand steady. "Out here in the Wild West, every choice carries a price. If you've been gripped by this story so far, make sure to subscribe for more tales of love and survival, because the next twist may change everything." He set the cup down, leaning close enough she could see the scars carved into his hands. "I'd rather die standing than live crawling." Outside, the night wind shifted. A lone coyote howled, echoing against the cliffs. Elias knew the K. Riders were closer now, and soon they would test just how deep his line in the dust truly ran. The storm broke not with rain, but with fire. Lantern light flared in the distance as riders set brush ablaze to flush him out. Elias slammed shutters tight while the woman clutched the blanket tighter around her shoulders, her gray eyes wide with fear. Then came the crack of rifles. Bullets splintered porch posts. Elias shoved her down behind the table, his Winchester barking back into the dark. Ironhide screamed from the corral, hooves striking mad fury against the rails. Lightning forked across the heavens, throwing the land into stark white. For one instant, Elias saw them clearly. A dozen riders circling, masks hiding their faces, rifles aimed steady. And in the flash, he caught a mark seared into the wrist of the man leading them, the same cruel brand the bay woman bore. Elias's stomach twisted. Whoever she was, she hadn't just run from them. She'd belonged to them. A rider shouted, voice sharp as iron, "Boone, step aside, and maybe we'll let your blood stay in your veins." Elias fired back, not words but lead. The outlaw leader ducked, snarling. Gunfire lit the night like a festival of death. Sparks leapt from the barn roof where bullets kissed wood. The woman crawled to Elias, shoving a revolver into his hand. "You'll need both." Her voice no longer trembled. It burned with defiance. Thunder rolled overhead, masking the drum of hooves as more men closed in. Elias kicked over the lantern inside, plunging the cabin into shadow. Only the lightning lit their faces, each crack exposing grit, sweat, and fear sharpened to steel. "Board the doors," Elias ordered. Together they dragged crates and saddles, stacking them as barricades. The woman's breath came ragged, but her hands never stopped moving. A rifle butt crashed through the window, followed by the glint of steel. Elias swung his revolver, firing point blank. A body slumped halfway inside, blood soaking the sill. Outside, the leader's voice rose again. "She ain't yours, Boone. She was marked long before you ever saw her." Elias pressed his back to the wall, heart hammering. Lightning lit her face beside him, defiant despite the brand etched into her skin. "They may own my flesh," she whispered, raising the rifle steady, "but not my soul." And as thunder cracked, the ranch house became a fortress bracing for war. Dawn bled slow across the horizon, painting the world in bruised gold. Smoke curled from the barn, half charred but still standing. Elias's yard looked like a battlefield. Spent shells scattered, blood soaking into the dust. The riders hadn't broken through in the night, but they hadn't gone either. They circled still, shadows against the rising sun. Every hoofbeat drummed a promise. This wasn't finished. Elias stood at the fence line, Winchester resting heavy in his grip. His shirt was torn, streaked with sweat and blood not all his own. The woman stepped beside him, face pale but fierce, the blanket gone now. She held herself tall, though her wrists still bore the mark like shackles that time couldn't erase. The outlaw leader rode forward, his black horse snorting steam. He pulled down his mask, revealing a scarred face, eyes cold as stone. "You can't keep her, Boone," he said. "She's ours by brand and by blood." Elias spat into the dirt. "No brand owns a soul, and no man takes her while I stand." The silence stretched. Then a pistol lifted, sun flashing off steel. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that. Trigger, that breath, that choice. The woman's hand brushed Elias's arm, steadying him. "Please," she whispered, echoing the words she'd first spoken at his fence, but this time her voice carried no surrender. Only resolve. "Let them try." The leader fired. Dust kicked inches from Elias's boot. He answered with his Winchester. The shot cracked across the dawn, striking true. The outlaw toppled from his saddle, hitting the earth with finality. The circle of riders broke. Some fled, spurring their horses hard, while others froze, eyes wide, their will undone without a leader. One by one they turned and thundered back toward the ridges, leaving only silence behind. Elias lowered his rifle. His breath shook, but his stance never wavered. The woman sagged against him, tears finally falling, not of fear, but of release. At the fence where it had begun, Elias spoke low. "You're safe now. As long as this ground holds me, you're safe." The sun climbed higher, burning the night's scars into history. Out here in the Wild West, love may be scarcer than water, but sometimes it's the only thing strong, enough to stand its ground. As dawn broke, Elias stood at the fence, rifle low, the woman safe at his side. He had chosen love over fear, and in the Wild West that was rarer than gold. If this tale stirred something in you, don't just leave it behind. Like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because out here on the frontier, stories of courage and sacrifice ride again with every sunrise.